welcome to the program. I am Abisola Adebayo. Nigeria state-owned NNPC Limited has officially started drilling for oil and gas at a field in the northern part of the country that has reserves of 1 billion barrels as the country seeks to produce crude outside the Niger Delta region of the country for the first time. According to NNPC Limited, the phase 1 of the coal mining project would have an oil refinery, gas processing unit, 300 megawatt power plant and fertilizer plant producing 2,500 tons a day. NNPC Limited first announced in 2019 the discovery of crude oil, gas and condensate in commercial quantity in the Kolmani area between Bauchi and Gombe states in northeastern Nigeria, a region that has been battling with Islamist insurgency for a while. In the flag-off ceremony earlier this week, President Buhari urged NNPC and its partners to work with local communities and draw lessons from the restive Niger Delta, where militants have in the past blown up pipelines, accusing oil companies of neglecting locals. Although no major oil firm is involved in the project, local firm Sterling Global Oil and New Nigeria Development Commission, a conglomerate owned by 19 northern states, will be in charge of the project. Now, what exactly does this mean for Nigeria's oil and gas industry? You know, oil and gas expert Bala Zaka is on the program today and he will be joining me to discuss all of this further. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. So,
thank you.
Let me start by asking, what is your reaction to this? You know, Nigeria started drilling oil in the northern part of the region. How would you react to that?
Well, when I heard about the discovery around Kolmani and the arrival of Mr. President for flag of, well, it was something I appreciated generally. But looking at it also as an expert or as a practitioner in the oil and gas industry, I've always known that Nigeria has basins. You know, we have sedimentary basins and we have promising basins. As I speak to you now, I think we have about close to about 7 basins or thereabout, starting with the prolific Niger Delta Basin. You know, we have so much fossil fuel there, or oil and gas, as people describe it. When you look at Lagos area or Lagos axis, I mean, Lagos axis falls into the basin we call Dahomey Basin. Oil has been discovered also there. When you look at the Anambra Basin, you know, I mean, oil and gas have been discovered. Then we have other basins that I have always described, or we can technically describe as potential basins. And those basins are like the Benue Trough, the Chad Basin, the Gongola Basin, and you have the Bidda Basin and the Sokoto Basin. So technically, Kolmani falls under Gongola Basin. So based on these discoveries, I mean, we are happy as practitioners, we are happy as Nigeria, and I think the oil and gas industry globally is happy. What we are waiting to see is the crystallization of activities, you know, so that at the end of the day, I mean, Nigeria will benefit from it, surrounding communities will benefit from it, the oil and gas industry community, whether locally or globally, will appreciate these discoveries.
This particular oil field is proposed to produce an estimated 50,000 barrels of oil per day. You know, that sounds like a big deal. What would you say to that?
Well, when you talk about endowments, when you talk about progress, as long as it is called progress, even if the increment or the increase is infinitesimal, as long as it is a positive increase, I mean, people will always appreciate it. What we don't want as Nigeria is we don't want stunted growth. We don't want a progress that will be backwards. But as long as it's a positive progress moving forward, we will appreciate it. Because you're just talking about oil now. You know, as we speak, Nigeria's proved reserve in terms of crude oil endowment is in excess of 36 billion barrels. And when you talk about crude natural gas, Nigeria's proved reserve in terms of natural gas is in excess of 200 trillion cubic feet. And when you talk about potential reserve, you're talking about something close to about 600 trillion cubic feet. That is huge. Because as you see Qatar today, I mean, World Cup is going on in Qatar. as lit as Qatar, as bright and as rich and as glamorous as Qatar, Qatar is just benefiting from just natural gas or their gas endowment. Then a country like Nigeria has natural gas and also crude oil endowments. In fact, Nigeria is more of a gas nation than a crude oil nation. So when you look at that, the only thing you can ask is what has been wrong in terms of trying to transform Nigeria into a great country? What is that thing that has made it difficult for Nigeria to diversify so that we can look like other great nations?
So now, how beneficial exactly is this discovery going to be to, Nigeria's revenue generation?
Well, first of all, when you talk about fossil fuel, Nigeria has been enriched. And whether people accept it or not, as we speak today, crude oil and gas constitute a very strong energy source globally. And people should not be deceived. In the next century and the century beyond, crude oil and gas will continue to be relevant and will continue to remain a very strong source of energy. Because as I speak to you right now, even coal is a very strong energy source and income generator for some nations. So moving forward, crude oil and gas will continue to be relevant. But we even are talking about cleaner fossil fuel. Even when you go to cleaner fossil fuel, Nigeria is more of a gas nation than an oil nation. What has always been the problem of Nigeria is trying to manage our God-given endowments. And let us get it very, very clear. Quote me that I said, the natural endowments that we have had, whether in energy or human beings or other solid minerals, is something that we can only appreciate the Almighty. But management, having visionary leaders that will make sure Nigeria is on the right pedestal and that will make sure Nigeria is on the right track, has always been the problems that we've been having. Because as I speak to you right now, Nigeria has everything to be an energy hub. Nigeria has everything to be the continental hub for Africa. But management, having that God-given endowment is one thing. Ability to manage it and crystallize it into something that will be beneficial to citizens, whether at local levels in Nigeria or to the Nigerian community or to the continent of Africa or to the global community, is another thing entirely.
Talking about management now, the situation with the Niger Delta region is not news to a lot of people, despite how blessed that region is. So what are the things that you would think the government should do or put in place so they would not repeat the same mistakes with the Niger Delta region?
I think this is my suggestion to the government of Nigeria. The government of Nigeria should come out clean. If we are having insecurity issues, say we are having insecurity issues. If we are having vandalization or theft or kidnapping issues, say we are having that. And the reason why it's always good to come out clean and be honest is when you say the truth, then people are ready to cooperate with you. But if you are losing investors and you are telling your citizens that the investors are moving away because they want to go into other sources of energy or they are diversifying. Meanwhile, in real sense, the investors are running away from business climate hostilities. Business climate hostilities, this time around, I'm not talking only about the oil and gas industry. When you talk about business climate hostilities, they are probably running away from armed robbery. They are probably running away from extortion. They are probably running away from general insecurity. They are probably running away from community issues. They are probably running away from high cost of operations, like energy cost and the rest. So sometimes it's good to say it so that citizens will collectively make sure they support their governments to get it right. Because if the government is doing well, then citizens can be taken care of.
Right, so do you think this discovery might eventually spur solution to the security challenges in that region? Because how exactly is the government expected to attract foreign investment if there is no security in that region?
Well, like one thing about first of all, let us get this clear. Crude oil and gas is an international product. or their international products. And that simply means you will continue to get foreign direct investors. You will continue to see the interest of the international investors and the international community. But there is one thing about the oil and gas industry. No matter how sweet your crude oil looks like, no matter how high the API gravity looks like, no matter how high what we call mobility ratio of your crude oil looks like, no matter how nice looking and other characteristics, or attributes of your crude oil and gas look like, if there is no security, your country or your product or your environment will not look like an attractive investment haven. So the first thing oil and gas industry practitioners look out for is security. So, and the security in the context of Nigeria is something artificial. With all the opportunities that are bound now that should make Nigeria to generate so much money, it is not the fault of anybody but Nigerians that we have bandits. It is the fault of Nigerians that we have kidnapping. It is the fault of Nigeria that we have community issues. It is the fault of Nigeria that we have pipeline vandalization. But if we can come together in national interest and most importantly, support our leaders and make sure also we have visionary leaders, of course, security is something we can nip in the bud. Once we fix security, then everybody, whether local or international investors, will see Nigeria as a positive and a very good investment haven. And if they come in to invest, coupled with the corporations of Nigeria, then it will be a win-win situation for all parties.
Right, so let me ask you this question as an expert. Are you confident that this project will be a success? Considering the fact that even the refineries, most of the refineries in this country are not even working right now.
Whenever I'm asked a question about the success of Nigeria, especially in terms of crystallizing God-given wealth, into positive products, I tend to be a bit reserved. I will continue to be a bit reserved because I have my practical reasons. As I speak to you right now, despite the need for energy, fossil fuel, in the context of Nigeria, quote me that I said, in Nigeria today, we do not have up to 15 active drilling rigs. And if you don't have active drilling rigs, how are you going to produce to meet up with your OPEC quota? How are you going to produce to even meet up with your internal budget plans and take care of your budget deficit? So it is one thing to be blessed with the resources. It is another thing to make sure you have visionary leaders that are supported and are surrounded by supporting lieutenants, so that everything about that endowment will yield positive products for the general benefits of everybody, whether the citizens, whether the country, whether foreign direct investors, whether the continent of Africa or the global community.
Right, so this discovery is the first of its kind in the country's north. Do you expect more of this in that side of the country?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, like I said, we have potential basins. In fact, those basins, we call them potential basins, and sometimes they are described as frontier basins, especially in the Petroleum Industry Act. What that simply means is they have so much endowment that we can never tell whether maybe they are in commercial quantity or they are not in commercial quantity. One thing about endowment is this: you can have it down there, but sometimes it is the technology that will determine whether you can deploy the technology and be able to recover whatever you need. Sometimes again it could be security issues. We could have issues again with bad governance. We could also have issues with bad policies. So there are so many things. But our hope and prayer is that we will continue to make discoveries, not only in the oil and gas industry. We pray to make more discoveries in solid minerals. We hope and pray to make discoveries in agriculture. We hope to make discovery in science and technology, engineering, and the rest. But it is one thing to make all these positive discoveries. It is another thing to have leaders and we have technocrats that will make sure we benefit. And let me give you a practical example. Right. If you look at the way and manner the oil and gas industry in Nigeria has been mismanaged, quote me that I said, had it been the crude oil and gas in Nigeria, or that we have in Nigerian reservoirs, were not natural gifts, if they were to be based on creativity of leaders, if they were to be based on transparency of leaders, if they were to be based on the morality of leaders, quote me that I said Nigerian crude oil and gas will have disappeared to the reservoir of some countries. And that's the extent to which we want our leaders to help and put our country, which in all the other aspects, put our country on the right trajectory. Once we get it right on the right trajectory, quote me that Nigeria stands to become a great country and a leader, not only within the continent of Africa, but among the Committee of Nations.
So although one would agree that this is one of the biggest discoveries of the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration, but you know, some people are beginning to toe the line of, oh, this discovery was made possible because of the APC administration in government. What would your reaction be to that?
Well, this is the way I will answer your question. If you ask an average person that doesn't really know much about the history of oil and gas in Nigeria, they will tell you that crude oil was discovered in Oloibiri in 1956 or 58. But I can tell you as a practitioner that searching for crude oil in the Niger Delta started as far back as 1948. That was the period it started. So, but many people will not know. When you even talk about the Gongola Basin, search for oil in the Gongola Basin started a long time ago. The only thing I can tell you is within this time frame where we now have a President Muhammadu Buhari in power, certain things came into crystallization. But I will always say one thing. For a good Nigeria, we should put political affiliation away. We should put religious affiliation away. We should put regional affiliation and sectarian affiliations away. What we need to do is to look at national interest. And our prayer is that, yes, Kolmani activity started ages before even President Muhammadu Buhari thought of going into politics. But within his time as a president, yes, certain things crystallized. And our belief is long after President Muhammadu Buhari, we will see more. Other frontier basins will be explored. But at the end of the day, Nigeria will be the one to be better for it. Not any political party, not any individual, but the totality of Nigerians.
Right. Oil and gas expert Bala Zakka, thank you so much for coming on the program, and thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Well, we'll go on a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking about something else entirely. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on the program. So the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, is expected to appear before the Senate Committee on Special Duties to explain why the sum of 206 billion naira was inserted in the 2023 budget for the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. The committee issued the summons when the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Farouk, defended our ministry's 2023 budget proposal earlier this week. The decision was made sequel to the ability of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs to provide details of the proposed allocation. Farouk told the panel that she did not know how the 206 billion naira was inserted into our ministry's budget by the Ministry of Finance. She explained that our ministry in 2022 requested for funds for some projects for the Northeast Development Commission and the National Social Safety Net project, which was not released then, adding that she was surprised that 10 times the requested fund was now allocated in the 2023 budget. The Senate has now asked that the Minister of Finance appear before it with details and plans for the allocation made, despite the country's dwindling revenue and struggling economy. Anyways, joining me to discuss this further is Dr. Lanre Sura, Raj is the chairman of Human and Environmental Development Resources Center. Thank you so much for joining me on the program. So this budget padding allegation, what do you think is going on? How would you react to it?
Well, I think what we can say is now going on is part of those things that we've actually happened to condemn with this government, which is about lack of coordination in the management of the affairs and also the operations of the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. And that is actually working now in the interest of, accountability. And also the oversight function of the National Assembly is also being appreciated, now. And I think they are waking up to that responsibility of real budget provision and proposition scrutiny. This is actually the role that the National Assembly was statutorily mandated to play. But what the National Assembly has been doing before now is either to conspire for padding or even pad their own budget. And at the same time, many times, the conspiracy with the civil servants and also the ministries. But the discordance that we've always experienced with this government, which has been almost the hallmark of the government, with ministers, arguing on the particular issues separately within this government, is actually playing out. So with the denial by the humanitarian affairs of how the 206 billion got into the budget provision, it's good for democracy and it's interesting. And it would be better if we eventually have the National Assembly seeing this to a logical conclusion for people to also be appropriately indicted and the president mandated to take necessary actions. Interestingly, it is not just the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. I think the total of what has been in the public domain would be in the range of over 400 billion. We've seen that there's almost the same thing in the budget for the Ministry of Defense. There's the same thing in the Ministry of Health and several other ministries where several amount of money have found their way into the budgetary provisions for this several ministries, and obviously from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is the last stop before the budget preparation gets to the president for transmission to the National Assembly. So for me, this is where you're seeing the positive impact of the negative activities and operations of the government.
So what exactly will be the implication of this situation?
The implication of that is for, the people who are responsible for this. I mean, because the Ministry of Finance cannot make provision that does not emanate from the assigned ministries. So there's no way that the Minister of Finance can justify any form of inflation of the budget of any ministry. So for that reason, this is more or less the opportunity for this government to actually hold responsible, appropriately sanction people who have been responsible for padding, and start the investigation even from the 2022 budget that will be ending very soon, by ensuring that we find out what exactly happened with the budget and how were they were padded. Because people must have padded the 2022 budget provision and allocation, and then we will be seeing several forms of money disappearing between December, January, there about when the fiscal year is coming to an end. The second point is, you can imagine where the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs even said that some of the budgetary provision for the ministry under the 2022 budget has not been released to the ministry up until now. So there will be a need to investigate that and hold people responsible for what that just happened.
Right. So do you see this maybe as just administrative incompetence, or is plain corruption?
No, this is not just plain corruption. This is an entrenched corruption. This is corruption taken too far. This is the highest level of impunity that you would experience from both civil servants and also politically exposed persons, political appointees. And that, like I said, the Minister of Finance would have to take responsibility for this, for what I've just played out. I mean, you're talking about several ministries, not just one. You're talking about a situation where ministries have not even in any way made some of these provisions before. One thing that is also clear is the fact that some areas where the civil servants have, as a tradition, padded the previous budget must have actually also been blocked. And some of those opportunities are not just available again, because they are pathologically, entrenched in the process of reaping some free money from the budgetary process, must have driven them to do this blatant, crass form of padding and overloading the budget for this to have happened, and possibly assuming that the National Assembly would not have the opportunity and detailed engagement of the process to ask questions like that just happened, which has now exposed several things. And like I said, the National Assembly must take this seriously with the president. The president must be compelled to take action, and where sanctions can be imposed for us to prevent the reoccurrence of a similar situation.
Right, Dr. Larry Sura, the Executive Chairman of EDA Resource Center, thank you so much for joining us on the program, and thank you for your insights.
Always my pleasure.
Well, that's how much we can take on the program for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
ma na ta mi ro gwe ore pe wu e ma na ta mi ro gwe pe wa wo le bile ko yen re you know go mi yan na dran de uga lo wo lo iku do re we no mi do ohun lo do wa do lo ohun lo wa.
We want to beg the government so to talk to Femi Adelaja. When he's coming here, we bring the white boat, that last one, the last one boat will come with it with many soldiers. Nobody can near the boat. So we are only begging God to help us.
Look at Torubami. Torubami, they just wake up in a day and start pursuing them up and down. They even promise them that don't worry, we'll settle you in another community. Toripami people, they are in Makoko community when they pursue them away. Ikate people, they are in Makoko community. Bariga, they are in Makoko community. Now the government and the developer again, they came in that they want to collect Makoko away from us.
If you are a landlord, you show your first data like this, they will start tormenting you that they will be putting fears in your body, they will kill you so that you will not be able to move front, to come and push them away.
Makoko community is an urban slum, which the Lagos state government considers a dent to its megacity ambition. The government wants to relocate and resettle the people of the community so it can redevelop the place. But the terms of relocation, resettlement and compensation are not clear. For years, the Makoko, Shoguro and Okeagbon communities have made this place their home. But recent efforts to develop the waterfront threaten their very existence. So where exactly does the government plan to relocate the locals? What happens to the fishing community? And how does a mega upscale property solve the city's housing deficit? TV360 Nigeria launched an investigation into the redevelopment plan of the Lagos state government and sought to find answers to these questions. Every morning, 55-year-old Godonu Ojo paddles his canoe to the Lagos Lagoon, just meters away from his ancestral home in Makoko to fish. Like thousands of other fishermen in the Makoko waterfront community, Godonu survives on the daily income he gets from selling his daily catch. But the reclamation activities of the Lagos state government, in partnership with the private developer FBT Coral Estates Limited, threatens not only the livelihood of Ojo and other local fishermen here, but also their homes.
I'm a fisherman too. I used to go to fishing. But when that dredging comes, there's a time that they put it on the water. That time the water float with it. When somebody passes, that boat with it, there's something that's used to bring sand will disturb the person. Even though the big wave is coming, the boat can capsize. So we try to manage until they put it on the ground of water. But that thing drive the whole fish to the sea. So that thing now can drive the whole fish to the sea and drive them moving around. They will not come nearby.
From the fishermen who toil all day on the lagoon, to the women who smoke the fish, and then finally to the fishmonger who trades our wares at the popular Makoko seafood market, the survival of each resident is tied to the Lagos Lagoon. But residents say the sand-filling activities on the community waterfront has made fishing very difficult. According to the Lagos State Commissioner for Agriculture, Abisola Olusonya, the artisanal fisheries subsector of the state's fish supply chain presently contributes 80% of local fish production, which accounts for 40% of the state's total fish demand. She added that it also provides a major source of livelihood for fishermen in the state, and Makoko is one of the sources of the city's fish supply. But despite its economic viability, the Lagos state government would prefer that Makoko Iwaya waterfront community does not exist. Rather than cars and motorcycles, canoes bump into each other here in Makoko, an informal waterfront settlement in Lagos, Nigeria. It is often called the Venice of Africa, but its floating slum status where thousands live in wooden houses nestled on stilts in deep murky waters tell a different story. The multicultural nature of this riverine community reflects in the language, majorly Egun, Yoruba and French. Despite being a slum, life here is tranquil. Residents engage in routine business activities, offering various forms of services such as grocery shops, door-to-door salesmanship, canoe manufacturing workshops, and even schools that cater for both English and French-speaking people.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Trouble began for the community on July 20, 2012, when the Lagos State Demolition Task Force stormed Makoko and began pulling down houses barely 72 hours after an eviction notice by the Lagos State Ministry of Waterfront Infrastructure Development. To speed up the eviction process, armed men set the wooden houses on fire. In a disturbance, one person lost his life and many others sustained injuries. Again in 2020, the Lagos State government announced the reclamation of 54.58 hectares of Makoko for redevelopment by developer FBT Coral Estate Limited. But this plan has been widely rejected by residents of Makoko Iwaya waterfront community.
Tí a fẹ́ kí wọ́n kó wa kúrò nínú omi bí ọkọ̀ tó wà ń bẹ̀ a fẹ́ àláìkì ẹ̀ lálálálá ni mo wí torí bó ṣe wọ́n ṣe ń ṣe fún gbogbo wa àwọn èèyàn wa bó bá ń ṣe díẹ̀díẹ̀ nísìn wọ́n á kó wọn kúrò wọn ní níbi kankan fi sùn sí gbogbo wa nìkan wà nínú bòté wà nínú ọkọ̀ bó bá níbi kan á sùn sí kò dáa àlọ́mọ wẹ́wẹ́wẹ́ ọmọ pọ̀ mo fẹ́ a fẹ́ kó wọn sí àlè kúrò ń bí bọ́tí bí ìjọba fẹ́ tún àwọn sukùl ṣe fún àwọn ọmọ wa ó dáa.
I'm a graduate of BSP Polytechnic. I graduated there, and it's from this fishing money that I was sent to school. We have many students here. We have more than 200 students, more than 300 to 1,000 students that are schooling here. We are all trained, all sent to school with this fishing money. If there's something that place, how are we going to survive? How are these people going to survive? Fine, they are talking about development. I know it's not good for we to be staying like this, like wasted. There's no way, there's no place to put waste, dustbin, you understand? No good health center, no government school here. But we ourselves, we support their motion that said they want to develop, but it shouldn't be that way. If truly they will develop the community, they should come. We, the youth, the community, everybody will discuss in a democratic way. They can't just go there and impose dredging or impose any forced eviction on us.
There's no place that can be free to them other than fishing ports. I don't know where you want to take them to. I don't know where you want to develop for them. The only place they can live peacefully is at the fishing ports. So, no to the land grabbing. You know, we have experienced a lot of things, and now we have come to say no to the land grabbing, and let us not be chased from our homes.
The locals, made up of 3 fishing communities, Makoko, Okwagbon and Sogoro, have organized themselves on different occasions to protest the government's relocation and redevelopment plans. They say rather than build the much-needed infrastructure the community needs, the government is employing subtle means to steal their land and redevelop it for the benefit of the city's rich. In 2017, thousands of people in Otodogbame, an informal fishing community, were left homeless when officials of the Lagos state government and armed policemen conducted a forceful eviction. The raid led to the destruction of homes of about 5,000 people and the death of a man who, according to the Justice and Empowerment Initiative (JEI), was shot in the neck.
Look at Torugbame. They just wake up in a day and start pursuing them up and down. They even promise them that don't worry, we'll settle you in another community. Torugbame people, they are in Makoko community when they pursue them away. Ikate people, they are in Makoko community. Bariga, they are in Makoko community. Now everybody now in Makoko community, all the people you have chased away, you have promised to relocate them in another community, which you didn't even do. And you now chase them to, they run into Makoko community. Now the government and the developer again, they came in that they want to collect Makoko away from us.
These particular people are the people that spoil Otodogbame. They went to Otodogbame. They sound-feed the waterfront. They make it impossible for the people, the fishing people, to move outside. Since they can't move outside, they use the sound to block the waterfront and then wage war on them, calling the touts, the police, without informing the governor. So when they started this thing, they killed more than 5 people were killed during Otodogbame first eviction that took place in 2017.
In an apparent move to avoid public backlash, the state government chose to adopt a new approach of dialogue with the representatives of the Makoko Iwaya waterfront community. But things quickly turned sour when the locals felt sold out by their leaders, or bales, as they are called in the local language. Residents showed us an MOU where the bales signed an agreement with a private developer, FBT Coral Estates Limited, giving consent to the state government's proposed redevelopment and regeneration plans. The residents, however, argued that the MOU was signed without the general consensus of the community.
When they came, they proposed the plan. The youth, everyone in the community doesn't support their motion. So we said no. Suddenly they went to meet with the developer Femi of FBT Coral Limited. So when they met with Femi without our consent, they signed. We heard that they signed an MOU. They signed a MOU. When they signed the MOU, we heard about it. We are not happy because we didn't meet together to discuss this. So we were angry. We asked them that we are not in support with this MOU they signed. So they were like, we are the leaders. Anything we want is that. Anything we want is what you will take.
What I've learned so far, speaking with members of this community, is that while they are open to development in terms of better schools, healthcare and other infrastructure, they want all of this on their own terms. Now, their fear is that these developers could take advantage of them and steal their land. Now, they say that fishing is their primary source of income and any form of relocation is not welcome.
It is important to understand that the MOU speaks of several redevelopment projects that the community will benefit from, such as jobs and other social amenities. But a part which speaks of a displacement and resettlement at a later date worries the residents. The Lagos state government, on one hand, promises to redevelop the area and turn it into an upscale estate in line with the themes agenda of the state. But in the same breath, the MOU speaks of a relocation and resettlement of the locals. This contradiction raises 3 major questions. Since the MOU did not mention the construction of low-cost housing for the residents, how will the construction of an upscale mega estate be of benefit to the fishing community? Where does the government plan to move the fishing community to? And how would they be compensated? These are the questions TV360 Nigeria put forward in these letters to the Office of the Public-Private Partnership, whose special advisor is Okpe George. The Lagos State Ministry of Waterfront Infrastructure Development, headed by Ahmed Kabiru, and the Lagos State Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development, which was headed by Salako Idris at the time of this report. Sadly, all attempts to get a response from these three agencies, who play vital roles in the redevelopment plan of the Makoko Iwaya waterfront community, have been futile. After an initial cancellation of a scheduled interview by the Special Advisor to the Office of Public-Private Partnership, Okpe George, we finally got a response months into this investigation. In a signed letter, the Special Advisor gave vague assurances of the state government's resolve to work in partnership with the locals. His responses did not give clear and direct answers to the questions and demands of the residents of Makoko Iwaya waterfront community. We have also tried to get answers from Felix Moka, who is named as a legal representative of the Makoko Iwaya fishing community in a memorandum of understanding. All calls to his numbers were unanswered, and he did not respond to his text messages.
Despite several protests, reclamation activities on the Makoko waterfront continues. As you can see behind me, that's a dredging machine set up by FBT Coral Estate Limited to reclaim more than 50 hectares of land off the Makoko waterfront. Now, fishermen say the dredging activities, as they call it, has made fishing quite difficult.
While the questions of the residents of Makoko Iwaya waterfront community remains unanswered, the sorry state of housing deficit in Lagos is better explained in these numbers. An estimated population size of 23 million residents, a housing stock of 1.49 million units, and a household size of 4.9 people puts the housing deficit of the state at 3.2 million housing units. The Lagos State government is not unaware of this problem and says it has delivered 14 housing schemes in the past 2 years, contributing 7,000 affordable housing units. While this number of homes can barely solve the city's housing problem, it is unaffordable for an average Makoko resident. This will further worsen the housing crisis and push more of the state's population into slums and, worse still, homelessness. To better understand the state's housing situation, I paid a visit to Lukman Oshodi, an infrastructure and development expert who led a research team in 2016 on the Lagos State government's past and present policies and projects that border on urban regeneration, housing and infrastructure development in the state, especially mega projects. Oshodi tells me some of his research outcomes.
If you look at the city of Lagos and the development orientation, all these resettlement, relocation, they are yet to be fully adopted as a culture of development processes in Lagos. If you look at development trajectory of Lagos, there is no way you can have a new development without some level of demolition and all that. But the process of going about that demolition so that it doesn't really expose the dignity of the people who reside in those places into danger, into ridicule. Those are the key points that need to come into play.
Sadly, the problem runs deeper than mere numbers suggest. When evacuations are carried out, families are torn apart and may never be properly compensated or resettled decades after. This was the case of some residents of Old Makoko who were lucky to be resettled in this substandard housing in Ikota area of the state. Now 70 years old, Roslyn Odimoko was a young mother and wife in 1990 when she and her husband lost their homes when the then military governor of the state, Raji Razaki, ordered the forceful eviction of more than 3,000 residents of Makoko.
When they give us notice 7 days that they're going to let everybody pack away, we think say that is a joke. Before the 7 days, they bring bulldozers, soldiers, surround all the whole Morocco. That day of 7 days, they start demolishing all the whole places. That's during Rasaki regime. That 1990. Like I myself, I sleep for main road for good 2 weeks because nowhere to go. I have children. My husband is there. Many people, we don't know where to go. 7 days notice to go out is how Morocco. Some people are sleeping under bridge everywhere. The government still call us when we are reporting. Where are we going? Where are we going? Then give us say that we come and take our allocation paper for this 80 years a year. We went there. Then give them. Like we have 2 houses. They not even give us 1. Some people have 3. Then give them 1. It's by luck. The house at Morocco is 10,000 houses. But the people they locate for this place, both Jakonde and this, it's not all to 6,000 or 5,000. You see, when this thing happen, then give us allocation paper. Everybody comes to find the zone house here, and when we get, some people get the place, they enter. When that time there is no window, it's uncompleted building. Yeah, there no window, no door, no nothing. Like this bridge now, many people die because nowhere to hide themselves. Before we use zinc and everything, putting for the doors and this thing. After then call us again for roofers. Even they give us paper for the roofers for doors and the roofers, and we take it and come and fix it by ourselves.
While the eviction has been described as one of the largest forced evictions in Nigerian history, the people still face the threat of losing everything as land grabbers and encroachers threaten them daily.
February this month, this year we just say caterpillar just coming. They bring sand, fill all these places. When they break, they will continue fill. When they break, they fill. When they break, they fill. We go and meet them and say, who send you this work? Because we know because they have gone and this OPC people. And then we cannot go and meet them. We send people go and meet them. Where are you coming from? Who send you? They say they want to develop care. If you want to develop, not be developed. If you never see us, why you say you want to develop this place? Nobody against developer. The only thing, if you want to develop, you have to come to our community and ask us, say, what happened? This is our landlord or this is the landlord. Well, we don't discuss with you, just continue to break our house. We just begin the drag. After when we drag, they don't give us any results. We have to go back. We go to, during that time, there's one court when they go for Yaba. We went to the court, we complained, they said we should bring our allocation paper for court. We submit all our allocation paper. Still, we tell the court, say, they are breaking the house. Let's give us stop those people for us, Joshua. They say no, they cannot stop.
This is how they normally treat us in this community like this. You see these people we are seeing there, so he's accusing the landlord association. They are the land grabber and they are the agent of the land grabber. They are working for Manuel Eberu and they are working for Yemi Idowu, which is the aircon owner. So that is the way they threaten our in 2017-2018. They kill like our 4 or 5 men. When they come again, this 2022 again now, there's an old woman, slum. So also a pregnancy woman also die in these cases like this. Even though around 2:30, they also tormenting. If you are a landlord, you show your first data like this, they will start tormenting you that they will be putting fears in your body. They will kill you so that you will not be able to move front to come and push them away.
We're just about running up our interviews with the residents of Ikota Estate when a security operative who did not identify himself came to us and ordered us to pack up our cameras. He also accosted some of the residents. He said they encroached on the area, and he also threatened to identify them and deal with them if they do not leave that area. He was also seen filming some of us and the residents to leave. Now, in response, the residents have told him that this is their land, and they also tell me that this is the way these unknown security operatives come around to harass them.
Makoko isn't the only community in the threat of an eventual displacement, and Old Maroko is just one of several communities that have ceased to exist.
Believe it or not, this part of Lekki in Etiosa local government area used to be a thriving town of Maroko, which more than 300,000 residents called home. Maroko was adjacent to Ikoyi and east of Victoria Island. While all traces of old Maroko has been destroyed to make way for this affluent neighborhood, the original residents make do with substandard housing given by the Lagos state government as compensation.
The human and psychological effects of their eventual eviction and the apprehension of what the future holds reflect in the dynamics of human dignity, protection.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Many thanks for joining us on News Now this morning. I am Simisola Adigun. With the 2023 general elections about 88 days away, President Muhammadu Buhari has reaffirmed his commitment towards a free, fair and transparent elections as well as smooth transition of power. The president gave the assurance in Abuja at the official opening ceremony of the 2022 Second Ordinary Session of the Parliament of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. The president further said Nigeria is committed to peace and political stability in the sub-region, adding efforts that will lead to the restoration of democratic governance in Mali, Guinea and Burkina Faso. Speaking at the event, the Speaker of the ECOWAS Parliament, Sidi Tunis, said the battle against climate change is far from being won, just as he urged various governments in the region to join forces together in weathering the storm.
Continue to work stronger as a community, and we have remained strong and resilient and shining example of regional integration and solidarity.
I am, however, convinced that to deliver for our own people, we must engage deeply and work together towards a shared future for each of our countries and the ECOWAS region as a whole. We must collectively demonstrate the political will to tackle these challenges together, bearing in mind that the success of one state is bound up in others succeeding as well.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mahmoud Yakubu, says the commission is ready to deliver a successful general elections come 2023. The INEC boss, who was represented by the National Commissioner Sam Olumekun at the retreat for resident electoral commissioners and administrative secretaries held in Lagos, he said the retreat was an opportunity to not only bring the recs up to date about the preparations, procedures and requirements for a successful election, but also to get commitment of the administrative secretaries towards attaining the highest level of efficiency in implementing the strategies outlined for a successful 2023 general election. He further added that INEC's allegiance is to Nigeria and its loyalty is to Nigerians who want free, fair, credible and verifiable elections. He, however, warned all staff of the Commission to be neutral and professional in their conduct during the forthcoming elections.
We want to bring all our new commissioners on board. We want to familiarize them with the technologies that we adopt in conducting elections now. And they need to know the guidelines and the rules and regulations guiding our activities. That we will use beavers, and we will transmit results live to our portal.
This kind of stocktake of the preparations will help to ensure the robustness of INEC's procedures and processes, and will serve ultimately to build confidence of the Nigerian public in INEC as the constitutionally mandated electoral management body of Nigeria.
The federal government has warned Nigerians traveling to the United States and Europe to take extra precaution with their belongings. The Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, at a news conference in Abuja, explained that the advisory was prompted by attacks on Nigerians in London and the stealing of their belongings, including passports. The government said many Nigerians have been victims of theft of money and passports in the U.S. and the United Kingdom. The minister said the advisory was necessary to protect Nigerians traveling to the U.S. and Europe. The Court of Appeal has set aside a judgment of the Federal High Court in Abeokuta ordering the People's Democratic Party (PDP) to conduct fresh primaries in Ogun State. The appeal court gave the order on Monday in Ibadan. Justice Oguntoyin of the High Court had on 27 September ordered the State Executive Committee of the PDP to conduct the fresh primaries within 14 days. The court delivered the judgment in a suit filed by 3 members of the party against the PDP governorship candidate Ladi Adebutu and INEC, contesting the authenticity of the delegates list used to conduct the primaries. But while delivering the judgment in an appeal filed by the PDP, Justice Folasha Deojo, in a unanimous ruling of the appellate court, stated that the lower court was wrong in its judgment, as only the National Working Committee of the PDP is vested with the power to conduct the party's primaries. The Osun House of Assembly says the state will continue to be known as the State of Osun as against Osun State. Governor Ademola Adeleke had in his inaugural speech ordered a reversal to Osun State instead of the State of Osun, which was adopted by the Rauf Aregbesola administration. But hours after, the Osun Assembly countered the move, maintaining that the adoption of the State of Osun is a matter of law. The Assembly, in a statement by Kunle Akonde, the House Committee Chairman on Media and Publicity, explained that the usage of the state anthem is an enactment of law, and as such, its usage is a matter of law and not choice. Meanwhile, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya, has flagged off the Nigerian Army Inter-Formation Combat Platoon Swimming Championship at the National Stadium in Surulere, Lagos, where he tasked participants to take advantage of the championship to enhance their fighting efficiency to conduct operations optimally, especially in riverine areas, towards fulfilling the Nigerian Army constitutional mandate. The Chief of Army Staff, represented by the Commander of Corps of Nigerian Army Engineers Corps, Major General Kamil Kadiri, gave the task during the flag-off ceremony of the championship, where he reiterated that the Nigerian Army has placed a high premium on qualitative training of its personnel across board. The Army Chief thereafter urged participants to strive hard to bring out their best in the championship, as their efforts and preparations for the competition will translate to the relative ease in the conduct of operations.
Swimming is a major sport in the Nigerian Army, from training up to commissioning, and even when you recruit, swimming is encouraged because it's a major fitness test for anybody wishing to join the Army. Two, it's also a means of developing our capability to work in the marine environment or riverine environment, where you have soldiers doing amphibious operations, and also operating in areas where they have to know how to swim to be able to get to their operation environment. Then three, it also foster comradeship among us. You can see how the environment is charged. Everybody is supporting his team. And the fourth is that we also use this opportunity to identify talents. You can see that while some are not good, some have actually been identified as those that can be groomed to represent both the Nigerian Army and even the country if we need to identify talents within the armed forces to represent the country. So by and large, that's what the competition is all about.
With more than 14 million Nigerians hooked on illicit substances, the Justice, Development and Peace Center of St. Agnes Catholic Parish, Maryland, has organized an anti-drug campaign to sensitize youths on the dangers of substance abuse. Organizers of the event explained that the campaign focuses on youth enlightenment as well as techniques to recover from addictions. More details in this report.
In the next 8 years, the use of illicit substances among world's population would have gone up by 11%, with about 40% of that increase projected to come from Africa. Alarmed by this report, the Justice, Development and Peace Center of St. Agnes Catholic Parish has put together this lecture to sensitize youths on the dangers of illicit substances.
Some of the youths that lost their job as a result of COVID-19 and are idle, they just believe that instead of staying idle, they should go by means of making themselves happy. Every year, we organize anti-drug campaign because we have noticed that it's one of the things that the youth is using to cut themselves off from normalcy. It's what is disturbing youths by their mental health. So as a result, every year, we organize the campaign to ensure that our youths are being spoken to.
Highlighting some of the challenges that leads to drug abuse, such as depression, peer pressure, as well as lack of access to information, they say all hands must be on deck to prevent more occurrences, as well as rescue those already affected.
Challenges come as a result of the addiction that is affecting one cognitive process of thinking. So, and what we tend to know is that the psychoactive substances are stimulants that altered the functionality of the way people think, the way they feel, and the way they behave. And if that is a fact on what psychoactive substance does, then it has an effect on the mental stability.
The solution is let there be conscious effort to give information to our people, especially the caregivers, the parents, give information to the children, as to the danger of call drug abuse what it is.
The NDLEA report disclosed that about 3 million Nigerians are suffering from drug use disorders. This, the agency says, accounts for some of the crimes and chaos recorded in the country.
A family that has a drug-dependent person is a diseased family, and that family would have a lot of issues. The community that has people who are taking drugs is also a problematic community. So the truth is that we all have to see it as a common problem, a universal problem, where we have to come together, bring our resources together to ensure that we tackle it adequately, and we all can benefit from the rewards of our joint collaboration in tackling the drug problem in Nigeria.
While reiterating its commitment to curb the spread of illicit substances in the country, the agency says engaging in activities such as reading, games and sports competition are healthier lifestyles that help overcome challenges that could lead to substance abuse. Simisola Adigun, TV360, Lagos.
We'll now go on a short break and be back with more stories. Do stay with us.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dssPR@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Welcome back. Now, in case you missed any of our news bulletins or for more updates, do log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we're at TV360 Online. In COVID updates, Chinese authorities have begun inquiries into some of the people who gathered at weekend protest against pandemic curbs as police gather in numbers on the city's streets. A small protest in the southern city of Hangzhou on Monday night was also quickly stopped, with people swiftly arrested, according to social media footage. Reports also claim that police were stopping people and searching their homes to check if they had virtual private networks VPNs set up, as well as apps like Telegram and Twitter, which are banned in China. Censorship has also gone into overdrive as Chinese social media platforms since the weekend's protest to stop people seeing and discussing them. Police have also detained journalists covering the protests in. Also, China has reported a decline in new COVID-19 infections on Monday, posting of 38,645 cases, out of which 3,624 were symptomatic and 35,021 asymptomatic. The National Health Commission announced on Tuesday. That is compared with 40,347 new cases a day earlier, 3,822 symptomatic and 36,525 asymptomatic infections, which China counts separately. Cases in megacities like Guangzhou and Chongqing dipped slightly, but thousands of infections were still recorded. There were no deaths for 2 days in a row, keeping fatalities at 5,233. We'll grab another short break here and be back with more stories in business.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places, the Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
The contributions of telecommunications to the nation's real gross domestic product GDP increased by 10.52% year-on-year to hit 7.28 trillion naira in the first 9 months of 2022. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the sector contributed 11.99 trillion naira to nominal GDP within the period under review, a 17.83% year-on-year increase from the 10.18 trillion naira recorded in the corresponding period of 2021. The NBS explained the gross output of telecoms and information services such as revenue from telephone, telex, facsimile, telegraph and other income from satellite and internet services. The federal government has borrowed 6.31 trillion naira from the Central Bank of Nigeria through ways and means advances in 10 months. This has pushed the federal government's borrowing from the CBN from 17.46 trillion naira in December 2021 to 23.77 trillion naira in October 2022. According to the Debt Management Office, the 23.77 trillion naira owed the Apex Bank by the federal government is not part of the country's total public debt stock, which stood at 42.84 trillion naira as of June 2022. Meanwhile, the CBN has said on its website that the federal government's borrowings from it through the ways and means advances could have adverse effects on the bank's monetary policy to the detriment of domestic prices and exchange rates. Oil prices rose on Tuesday as investors weighed a potential output adjustment from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies, OPEC+. Brent crude went up 12.06% to $85 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude climbed 1.73% to $78 a barrel. The price jump was aided by hopes that China would relax its COVID-19 controls after rare protests against the country's zero-COVID strategy over the weekend in major Chinese cities. The global oil market is also assessing the impact of an upcoming Western price cap on Russian oil. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said China poses a systemic challenge to UK values and interests as his government condemned Beijing after a BBC journalist was beaten while covering protests in Shanghai. In his first major foreign policy speech at the Lord Mayor's banquet in London, Sunak said the so-called golden era of UK relations with China was over. As a result, Sunak said the United Kingdom will need to evolve its approach to China, adding competing for global influence using all the levers of state power. Sunak had been due to meet China's President Xi Jinping at this month's G20 summit in Bali, but the plan failed to fall through. Last week, London banned Chinese-made security cameras from sensitive government buildings. Well, we'll take entertainment update now.
After a 3-year hiatus, Ndani TV's hit web series Skinny Girl in Transit is officially back for its 7th season. Ndani TV has shared a few behind-the-scenes videos online, one with Abimbola Craig, Bisola Ayeola and Sharon Uja, full proof that these three will reprise their roles in the new season. One of the stars of the series, Chioma Okoli, who plays Wosi, also posted a tweet confirming a season 7 comeback. Created by Temi Balogun, the series tells the story of Tiwa, a plus-size woman in Lagos who is trying to lose weight, find love and excel in her career. The new season is written by Lani Aisida, Ifeanyi Barbara Chidi, Abdul Tijani Ahmed and Bumi Ajakaye. After a recent announcement, Nigerian singers Wizkid and Burna Boy are back and ready to bag the title of the first African artist to sell out the 80,000 capacity London Stadium. The musical fiesta is set to happen at the West London Stadium, London, which is home ground for England Premier League side West Ham. Burna Boy has dared reactions about the concert when he announced the event on social media, which is set to take place on June 3, 2023, while Wizkid's headline event at the same venue will take place on June 1, 2 days before Burna Boy's show. That's it on the entertainment segment of News Now.
In sports, Cameroon kept hopes alive after reaching the round of 16 with substitute Vincent Abubakar inspiring a breathless comeback in a 3-3 draw with Serbia at the World Cup. Cameroon took the lead against the run-off play as Jean-Charles Castelletto peeled away from Andrija Zekovic to prod home from the goal line at the far post following a flick on corner. Mitrovic extended Serbia's lead following a fabulous team move early in the second half. But after Abubakar's outrageous finish had halved the deficit, Eric Choupo-Moting completed a comeback from close range shortly after. This was the first meeting between Cameroon and Serbia in all competitions since a 4-3 friendly win for the Serbs in June 2010. Well, that's our bulletin this morning on News Now. Many thanks for watching. I'm Simisola Ajigun. Bye for now.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
The majestic River Niger, rising from the highlands of Guinea, it meanders through many countries to Nigeria, slicing through the commercial city of Onitsha and the beautiful Asaba on her way to the Delta, where she discharges into the Gulf of Guinea in the Atlantic Ocean. Stretching to about 4,000 kilometers, River Niger is the third longest in Africa and provides livelihood to the people of the many communities on its bank. From here, they irrigate their farmlands and fish in its deep waters. Aside providing veritable mode of transportation, it is also a source of power generation. In fact, many people, particularly in Anambra and Delta states, depend on the river for their sustenance. Back in the day, canoes were the primary means of transportation on the river and served to convey goods and people from one bank to the other. But in 1965, 5 years after independence, the first Niger Bridge constructed by Dumez was completed. With the inauguration of the bridge, the main east-west connection in Nigeria was created. For Southeasterners, homecoming is everything. They return en masse at festive seasons to celebrate with kinsmen. But quite often, the frightening gridlock on the old bridge turns the homecoming trip into a nightmare. Femi Adesina recalls the harrowing experience of a friend who spent 6 hours trying to cross from one end of the bridge to the other.
That friend I had known long before now called me and said, please, what could I do? I said, what was the issue? He said he had been on the River Niger bridge for 6 hours. 6 whole hours. He said, can I call somebody so that they can intervene and let the bridge flow? He said, 6 hours from the foot of that bridge, that when traffic flows, you can cross that bridge in 5-7 minutes. He said 6 hours they had spent on that bridge, and there was no hope that they would get to the other side.
But then there are those with more bitter tales to tell. On this same bridge, homebound families are known to have been trapped for hours and days on end.
I have slept there, so I have a first-hand experience of the challenge. So in situations like that, it's a nightmare, because you may even come there thinking that you have stayed 1 day. Some people tell you they have stayed 2 days, especially during festivities. It's usually a very major nightmare.
Aside the nightmarish experience of the users, the bridge also poses danger to motorists as a result of the heavy load it bears.
I've had awful experiences flying through that Niger bridge. It has been an awful experience where we have a dilapidated bridge that for so many years it has lasted. It was so dilapidated that sometimes you'd be scared that you might end up having your car get into the river. So it's an awful experience.
There has been lots and lots of tales about that place. We've had records of the bridge quivering, motorists on the bridge actually feeling the quakes and tremors from the bridge. So it was, in one way or the other, going to end up being a nightmare. It was actually a catastrophe just waiting to happen.
Now, 57 years after it was built, the Second Niger bridge is coming up quickly to alleviate the plight of the people, reduce the load on the old bridge, and boost the socio-economic potentials of the Southeast.
The bridge is very nice. It's very good. So we believe that since the new Niger bridge have passed, we believe that development can come.
Truly, the construction of a second bridge across the River Niger had long been identified as the panacea to the seemingly intractable gridlock and frustration on the old bridge. Until 2018, it was the subject of intense politicking. While President Shehu Shagari promised to build the bridge, General Ibrahim Babangida challenged Nigerian engineers to design it. From General Sani Abacha to successive governments,